lounging, son.
All right, welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name's Ryan, and I have another dope guest for you guys. I have another member of the Cartoonist Kayfabe ringside seats with me. That's how I know Will. And like I said before, I've said this on the other interviews. I want to interview as many members as I can that are producing work or have to, anything they're doing with comics to help promote their stuff, and just so everybody can get to know you guys. So welcome.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Yeah, no, I'm excited to be here and to talk to your audience about whatever we got going on.
Yeah, man. I mean, I told Craig, I talked to Tony, Tony Farrow. I was trying to think of what to do with my channel. Obviously the kayfabe guys, they go through books. I'll do that too. Maybe not necessarily the same thing. So we've actually done the same book, and I already had an episode recorded. I'm like, fuck, they before me, or whatever. But I do my interviews, but I wanted to do something that I don't see anywhere else, and that's a collection of indie cartoonists and interviews and introducing people to them. So people come to my channel for a Jason Aaron interview, but maybe they'll stay and maybe they'll check out some of the other stuff, and that's what my goal is. And so far, I believe you're the fourth person that I've interviewed, and I got a few more lined up, and eventually, hopefully, I can get everybody on here.
Awesome. Yeah, no, glad to be here.
So if you could just share, with the audience, anybody listening, watching, a little bit about yourself, how your fandom started, and then how you got into actually producing stuff as well.
Sure. So just a little bit of background on me, I guess. My name's Will Hoffknecht. So how did it start? Let's start there. It started for me the first exposure I had to comics at all was as a kid on the playground with buddies that had the first edition Marvel Universe cards, right? And I remember looking at those, and I knew, I knew who Captain America was, I knew Spider, I knew some of the characters just from the general culture, right? Maybe seeing on TV. I remember the Hulk, watching the reruns of the Hulk as a kid, but I never thought of it in comics, right? Until I saw those cards, and I remember just because I collected as a kid. I was 7, 8 years old, whatever. I collected baseball cards, and I loved that those first cards were baseball cards, where they had stats on the back, and they told you, first appearance and what their powers were, and who's stronger than who, right? And I just loved that, because to me it was like looking at stats on baseball cards,
Yeah.
And so that's when it kind of became oh, these characters are they're real to me, in some way. And then when it really, but even then I didn't get into actual comics, right? It wasn't until I was on the bus one time when I was in, I don't know, 4th grade or somewhere right around there, and a buddy had a Ghost Rider comic. And I sat next, and it was, it's the Danny Ketch Ghost Rider, the 1990 series. And I sat next to him, and I remember going we would just look through it and read it and talked about it. It was Ghost Rider number 20 or 21. I don't remember which one. But then I remember just days later going to the market and seeing the spinner rack of comics, right? And that's when I talked my dad into letting me get a comic, and I picked up, it was either the same issue of Ghost Rider or the one right after. It was it was somewhere, it was either 2021, and I was hooked, right? And I was just big, I was collecting comics all through the Image era and everything up till about the late 90s, I got turned off a lot by the late 90s Marvel and DC comics and everything. And I got out of it for a long time. I still kept a lot of comics, but I didn't really read them. I didn't really buy them. I just kind of had boxes, right? And then about, I got a pretty good job. I had moved away for a while, and I got a pretty good job, and I had money. I had disposable income again when I got older, right? And so then I remember digging through my boxes of comics and being man, I used to love these, And then I started going to comic shops again, and then I started opening an account, and then I started buying comics again. Then I started reading everything I could, And since then, I've pretty much been buying comics for the last 15 years since, right? And just kind of reading and doing everything. But I'm also so I have a huge collection. And I used to just collect everything, right? I would just, any comic that came in, I collected it, right? Then it got to where I had to whittle down my collection, and that's when I became I started going well, what do I do with all these extra comics? So that's when I started getting into dealing, right? And started figuring out, well, how can I just move product? and then I started working cons, and then I'm meeting different people, and I got really into like all the indie artists at the cons. They were mostly small conventions, nothing like big, right? But
Right.
around here where we live, there's a lot of little ones that we affectionately refer to them more as like nerd flea markets than we do like a con, right?
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Hell yeah.
And they got people who like do their like nerdy crafts, or they do have comic people. They have people who just deal in like old toys, just kind of a mixture of stuff like that.
D-list movie stars doing fucking signings. Yeah.
Yep, 100%. And I always get them. I always get those signatures. So I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, why not? You're there.
Yeah, it's like $20. Yeah, okay, I'll get a cool picture.
Mhm.
And then in that time, like I just woke up one morning and was like, man, I love comics. I was meeting all these people, and I thought, how can I I'm not an artist, right? Like I can't draw.
Yeah.
I can't hardly do much creative, right? Like I've just never been good at that kind of stuff. But what I've always been good at, I mean, I've done for like all sorts of different people in different areas. I've always been good at like the back end support stuff, right? Like, I can't sing, but I can sure play drums to help a singer, right?
Mhm.
I can't draw, but maybe I can find a way to support people who draw things that I like. So I woke up one morning and went like, I really just want to figure out ways to help the comics that I love and help create, that old saying of like, try to put stuff out in the world that you want to see, right?
Right.
And so I just started like, I woke up. So I have a thing where like I wake up in the morning sometimes and I have an idea and it bugs me, and it just keeps bugging me and it keeps bugging me until I do something about it. And sometimes it'll take like weeks or months, but I'll like think about it every day until I do something. So I just said, you know what? I want to make a comic, but I can't draw. So I'm just going to publish a comic. I'll just throw money at something, right? And I'll publish a comic. And just if for no other reason, so then in the end of the day, I would have learned how to publish something, and I would have at least had something to show for it, like a cool comic, something that I can hold in my hands that has my name on it somewhere, right?
Right.
And so I just opened up my first anthology. I said, well, I'll just do an anthology mag, and I'll just open it up to people in the kayfabe group, originally, and just say, hey, anyone just want to put their stuff in this, and I'll put it together and we'll put it out. And so that's how we put out the first issue of my company. We call it it's 100% comics. Let me find it here. But we call this is issue 3 here, but it's
Right. Yeah. Got that.
Cool. Yeah. And so that's our first. That's just the first. Number 1 was the first thing I put out. We got from the group. I got David Browers did the cover, which was awesome. It was just black and white. It was really just it was 18 pages or something. Like it was small, right? 16 pages. But in the end, I just put it together and I'm like, cool, I have this object. Then I thought, well, now I'm going to iterate this, right? So then we did an issue 2 and I got more submissions. And I started with issue 2, I started paying for submissions, right? So it wasn't much, right? Like, I mean, I'm already spending all the money to publish. I'm not making any money. To me, it's a hobby, right? So I'm losing money in these efforts, right? But I'm like, I don't feel right trying to sell something that I didn't pay the creators for, right? Even if it's not much, at least it's something, right? So I started offering like a really low page rate for submissions, right? So if your submission got accepted, I paid, a couple bucks per page, right? And so then I did that for, the next couple issues. I started paying for covers. Now, so we're actually putting together issue 4 now, right?
Okay.
Just started putting it together. I got the first submission for it. I have a cover and I have 1 submission for it. So it's in the early stages. I'm hoping to get out this year. But so then anyway, point being, then I start getting more and more involved with these projects with the group, right? With the kayfabe group. I don't know if have you talked to Ben Granoff, or do you know Ben?
He's coming up.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So Ben's awesome. Ben was super supportive on my early issues. He helped. He was kind of. I think I credited him in issue 2 and 3 as like a creative consultant. He
Right.
really
I saw
helped,
that.
Yeah, he really helped me. Like he helped do some editing and some copy editing and helped find some talent of people. He was really really helpful in it. And I really respect his opinion and his feedback. So then he posted that he wanted to do this, bootleg Weapon X tribute, right? And so we just started talking about it when he posted it, and I just said, well, you know what? If you put it together, I'll publish the thing, right? I've never published a square bound volume. I'll throw the money behind it, right? And so we just started with that, and Ben started going out of his way to find artists for that, and really start piecing it together. And for, I guess, for your listeners who don't know, like what it basically is a bootleg, you know, it's not it's not a copy. It's basically like we told the artist, hey, everyone's going to get assigned a page from Weapon X, from the great Barry Windsor Smith's Weapon X book.
Right.
And what they use that as like a prompt, right? Not necessarily copy it, right? In fact, don't necessarily copy it, but use that as to prompt you to do something creative, right? And some people did like, kind of their variations of the page. Some people have done like, there's like a cover where there's like Wolverine like trying to stab one of the guys. Like they did that, but they did it from the guy's image instead of Wolverine's.
Okay, cool.
Like they did a different point of views. Some people. One guy submitted pages where he made like religious iconography and turned Wolverine into Jesus. Right, like in these. I mean, it's really awesome and just really creative. And we're about 60% done with that before it's and I'm hoping soon to start being able to open up pre-orders, but it's really fun. It's exciting. And just kind of, I don't know, I'm learning how to do all this while we're going along.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome, dude. I mean, like, that's one of the things that I love about the group. And, this is going to be said probably every time I talk to somebody that's a fellow member of the group, is that I really love the creativity. I love the positivity. I added my buddy Dylan, who does we do like our weekly reads on my channel. And we also do like our book of the week, right? And I added him, and he told me the other day, he's like, dude, that is the most positive comic book group that I've ever been a part of.
Yeah.
There's nobody's talking shit. Nobody's. And I was like, I know, that's why I asked you, you know what I mean? Like, I wanted you to like, plus like, you don't even have to necessarily interact if you don't want to. Like,
yeah,
you just drop in and you will learn about so much cool shit.
Right.
I have learned about a lot of cool shit, not just from watching Ed and Jim on their channel, but I've learned a lot of cool shit from the group, like that they're not talking about. And I've also got more self-published comic books, like than I know what to do with. Like, I have stuff from like almost everybody, and I just like, I make sure I always schedule a couple of months in advance for interviews, right? So I try not to overwhelm myself. I'm like, oh, I'm going to take a month off, and I never do. Like, I start getting down to like, there's only 3 more interviews scheduled. I'm like, oh shit, I better fucking get on this. I better start talking to people. I love what everybody does. Like, you guys together, you got the IGD book, right? You have the 1963 fucking, like, these projects, and I'm not even bullshitting you. I am more excited for these projects than I am for most of the shit that's being published, because I work in the shop. So like, and I can't even share this with everybody because not everybody's able to get it. The minute scrambled eggs went for sale on Cosmic Lion, I fucking ordered that shit.
Yep, I got mine. Yep.
I'm still waiting for it to come, but like, whatever. I made sure I got it locked in.
Yeah, and you mentioned 63, so that's the next project, right? So my hope is that so to give some perspective on that, like my hope is Weapon X will be the first square bound, 63 will be the second, right? And I'm hoping to kind of work out any kinks of doing like a square bound volume and the costs and everything associated with that with Weapon X, and then we'll go into 63, and 63 was something that it came out from Ed and Jim on the channel, and they were like, they keep talking about it. I mean, for anyone who, if you haven't read Image 1963, it's brilliant, right? It's absolutely brilliant. It's one of the best things Alan Moore ever did, in my opinion, of all the things Alan Moore did. And mostly because, to me, it's one of them where, apart from like Watchmen or Swamp Thing, right?
Right.
I mean, kind of the same creators with Swamp Thing, but he's really working with creators that I adore, right? Where oftentimes he works with creators that I don't necessarily, I'm not a huge fan of. And so with 63, it's Alan Moore, it's primarily Moore and Veitch and then Steve Bissette, right? And then they got help from Valentino, and they got help from Don Simpson and a few other people here and there, right? But it's primarily those 3, right? And really, it's one of those great unfinished projects, right? So our idea was like, well, you know, they kept talking about this idea of this image. What did they call it? They called it the 1963 annual or something. You know, I
Yeah.
forget what they talked about that it was supposed to be called. So we
Giant
said,
size. Maybe it's giant size annual or something.
no, that's what mine is,
That's
right?
what
So
yours is.
yeah,
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
that's what ours is. But it was actually called, yeah, or it was called Image 63 Annual or something like that. I forget what the actual name. So we took it and said, you know, well, we want to create something. And it was like, well, the initial idea was, well, let's just create like a bootleg kind of little project, a fan anthology using, you know, kind of within this 1963 world, right? And then then I got to thinking and I went, you know, it's been like 25 years since we've seen anything from 1963, right? I mean, minus a very small Tales of the Uncanny like mini comic that Steve Bissette did in like 2012 or something. That's like the only thing that's been out. And so then I said, well, you know, just like X-Men, I said, it reminds me, I mean, 1963 was a tribute to Silver Age comics, right? And it was a love letter in a lot of ways, while also kind of being a parody, right? So I said, well, you know, X-Men of the 60s failed, right? If we recall, X-Men just died in the late 60s, right?
Yeah, and they started doing reprints of the earlier
Yeah.
issues. Yeah.
Yep, and then they just stopped printing it altogether for a while, right? And then it came roaring back a number of years later with Giant Size X-Men. So that was kind of the impetus for the idea, was going like, well, let's do Giant Size 63, right? This will be the return. And then it was just going to be an anthology thing, and then we got to having a couple creative meetings and went, well, maybe we shouldn't just do an anthology. Let's try to build a story here. Maybe not, and we don't want to do the original idea story, right? Like we don't want to just try to finish the idea. We want to do something our own, right? And so what we did is we came up with this idea of, we're going to build a framework. And over the first couple creative meetings, we built a framework of like, here's how it starts, and here's how it's going to end. Now you guys come up with what happens in the middle. And so then we started assigning teams and characters and went, okay, you do this character and you can do whatever you want as long as it fits into this beginning and this end. And then we gave the next set out, right? So we still kind of let them let all the creative people do like kind of an anthology, and let them do creatively what they want to do, you know, but still have an overarching story that's going to be put together in the end, right? That's kind of what we came up with. So anyway, we started with this process, and then Steve Bissette got wind of it, right?
I saw it. I saw the post.
So Steve Bissette got wind, and he was like, hey, you know, reach out to me. Let's talk about this. And really for us, we were just thinking like a little fan project, nothing super big. It's still not big, right? But we got to chatting back and forth about actually licensing some of the characters. And so we discussed the details with him. He said, yeah, I'm totally interested to license what I own of the universe, which he owns a portion of it, right? He said, so I will license you the names, all the trademarks that I have, and the characters that I have 100% fully under me. And because he understood the project, he was actually very reasonable with price and everything. So I went ahead and said, yep, let's do it. And we made a deal, right? Then we tried to reach out to Veach for the other half of the characters, and unfortunately, because of the way the ownership works between Rick Veach and Alan Moore, it was a non-starter conversation for that. So essentially, what we've done is we've gotten part of the universe licensed, and we're going to use that part. The other part, we're kind of doing a parody fair use version of, you know, the other group of characters,
Right.
in order to create our stories. So there's still a lot of interesting, fun, creative things that we're doing out there. We're playing with timelines. We're playing with colors. We're playing with tributes to different eras, right? So there's a lot of ideas, and hopefully we're still trying to rein them in. But you know, it is what it is, and that's very early though in those stages. Like we're just barely doing like early art. Right, most of the writing is done, but the art is still kind of very early. So that one's probably still not going to be around for quite a while. But I am super excited for that project. Like,
Yeah, dude.
I
I mean, I'm so
cannot wait
too.
to start seeing these pages. Like,
Yeah, I remember seeing like the 63 issues in like quarter bins, right?
Yep.
When I was
Yep.
younger, and when I was getting some of the old Image stuff, because like I was 5 6 when Image started. So like I read comics. I think 92 was when I started, but I didn't start with Image, obviously. I started with like Flash was my first comic.
Okay.
But I got some of the 63 issues like not that long ago because I'm like, oh fuck, they're talking about it on the Kayfabe channel. Like I got it. I'm like, I gotta get these comics. And then you guys are gonna do the annual, but I couldn't find 6. It was going for like $40 on eBay. I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm giving this dude $40 for it.
Yeah.
Luckily, my comic shop came through. Luckily,
Awesome.
restocked number 6. I got it for like $8. So like now I'm just sitting on it. I'm waiting because I want to check it out and I want to read it completely. You know.
No, 6 is the hardest issue to find. Still, 1 and 2 are easy. Number 1 had like a 500,000 print run. I mean, it was hugely popular. And then they each kind of like decreased print run after. So every subsequent issue, it's harder to find, you know?
Yeah. I mean, luckily, I'm really glad I fucking was able to find it. Cause like, that's another thing about what you guys are doing in the group that I really love. Like none of this is for money. You guys are producing some of the best comics that I'm reading and the most fun. And it's all through the love and passion you guys have for comics.
Yep. And I mean, special. Well, and what we're doing too is for me as publishing these projects is, so I mean, we haven't really talked about it yet, but the arts grant, right?
That's what I was going to ask you next.
Yeah, and so well, and so just to start, I mean, before we even get into that detail, is the way that I'm building all of these is I'm trying to pay for what I can. I'm not paying all the creators, right? They're volunteering out of love for a lot of it, but I am paying for a few things here and there. I'm paying for all the print runs. I'm selling everything that I can, but all profits that I come in, everything I sell, every dollar goes to fund that grant, goes into my business accounts for that grant. What's essentially happening is, so let's just give the viewers an idea of what the grant is. So we, again, it kind of starts with Steve Bissett again. So what happened is I started publishing these comics, right? And I kept thinking about like, well, how else can I help the community, right? Because that's really what I'm trying to do, is find ways to help create the comics that I want to see in the world. And the Kayfabe guys, Ed and Jim, did an interview with Steve Bissett. And in that interview, they kept talking about they were talking a lot about Eastman and Laird, right? And Eastman and Laird, Kevin Eastman took all his spoils from the Ninja Turtles' early fame, and he built Tundra Publishing. And it lasted a few years, and he lost $14 million. Peter Laird took a lot of that money, and he built the Zarek Grant. And the Zarek Grant, while not a huge ton of money, for each project, helped build the next generation of interesting and awesome and indie cartoonists. You can just name the list of Zarek Grant winners, and it's a hall of fame of modern cartoonists, right? Like Jeff Lemire, David Cho, Tom Scioli, right? I mean, you just start going down the list, and I mean, there's all these great things, and it wasn't a ton of money, but what the Zarek allowed these creators to do was kind of get a notoriety, right? It meant something. Even if it wasn't a lot of money, it meant something to that community to know that, wow, this guy's project won a Zarek Grant, right? So we started playing with the idea of, well, I should say, I started playing with the idea of going like, well, what would be a better use of my money? If I'm throwing some money at publishing some comics, why don't I throw some money into an account and give away that money, just direct cash? I mean, if you ask anyone, some of the best ways to support a project is literally direct cash. So I said, well, why don't I just give direct cash to projects? And with that, I started building the guidelines and the bylaws and for what we call now the Make More Comics Arts Grant. Right. I found a guy in the community a graphic designer to build logos for us. I found people who are big comics fans to be the judging panel. Right. Because I don't want to be, it's not just me. It's not like my egotistical thing of just being like, I like this comic. I think this is the best. Here's money. I want it to be like a group of people deciding that this is where we want to invest. And it's not even an investment, right? I shouldn't say that. It's not like we're going to make money off it. It's free money, right? We're giving it away. But this is how we want to support to see more of what we want to see in the world, right? I built the guidelines. Literally, I started with, I took an old copy of the Xeric submission guidelines, and I started kind of modernizing some of them because they were a little outdated, right? The Xeric's been gone for a number of years. I pulled out things that we just didn't want to deal with, like the Xeric. The Xeric dealt with funding and credit scores and things like that because they didn't want to essentially give money to people who had the money to publish it, right? They were trying to help young creators and upstarts, and we just kind of took all that out and said, let's just go purely off the project. So we built the submission guidelines. We built the submission timeline. As we were 2 months in and we still hadn't gotten a single submission. And I was like trying to push it, like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to get a submission. And then what am I going to do with this money if I don't? You know, and so I started even looking for, like, is there other publishing projects or something I could throw some money at? But anyway, starting like the last 2 weeks before the end of the submission period, we started getting submissions rolling, right?
Nice.
And while we still didn't get a ton of them, we got a good number of submissions to make it a contest, and we got a number of submissions from all over. I mean, submissions. I even got a submission from a former Xeric grant winner, right? Like that's,
wow, that's
I was
dope.
like, oh, that's awesome. Like, I know this person. Like, and we got a submission from a comics creator in Amsterdam, right? We got a submission from people all over the US. And just, you know, and the outline, they had to kind of talk about their project. They had to kind of give examples of the project, like either photocopies or whatnot, right? And a breakdown of how they're planning to fund it or use the money, right? A budget for their project. And so we kind of we literally just, what's today? Today's a Saturday. So when we're recording this, literally on Monday night, I packed up the submissions and shipped them all to the judges. So just a few nights ago. And so we're in that period right now where the judges have all the packets in hand. They're evaluating them. And then we have a scheduled call with the judging panel here in a couple weeks that we will actually decide who's going to win, right? And who's going to get the money.
That's awesome.
And then, you know, do a press release later this, you know, here in another couple months and release cash and award someone. So I'm super excited. Like I'm more than happy with the submissions we got in. I mean, I looked through every packet to verify that all the requirements were there, you know, and then I sent them off to the judges. So yeah, I'm just super excited to see what the judges come up with who they decide that is going to get this money, and just be able to like fund something new in the world.
That's,
right?
I mean, dude, it's really awesome. I mean, when you announced you were doing it, I mean, because like I may not always like comment on every post, right? I may not always be super interactive. I mean, I'll post like videos and stuff. I'll once in a while fucking jump in conversations. But when I saw that, it blew me away because again, this is about your love and passion for comics. This is you trying to get notoriety. It's not you trying to make a buck. Like you're trying to help another cartoonist, another creative get their project made that may otherwise not be able to do it. And that's an amazing thing to do.
And that's what I mean. I wrote, and when I sent the packets to the judges, I spelled those things out, right? And I kind of gave them the guidelines that I want them to think about while they're evaluating the packets. And that was one thing, one of the key things that I noted was like, you know, that there is a responsibility here, right? That who we decide is going to receive this cash. It's not a huge amount of money. It's $500, right? So it's a small grant. It's a micro grant for this first round. I told them, like, you know, that I consider, you know, this is important because our decision could choose whether this project lives or dies. Right. I mean, that's literally what it is. For some people, they may not win and they may decide I'm just going to scrap the project. Right. Other people may go on whether they or not they get the cash or not. That, you know, that's up to them. But I take it super, you know, like I believe that the judges are hopefully as serious about it as I am and really want to like do their best to kind of help the creators and fund something new and something creative and something interesting, and just be able to say, hey, I helped put that thing out in the world, you know. And
for sure, dude. I mean, and what's like the long-term goal for this make more comics?
the long-term goal is the same as the Zarek, to help fund and find the next, generation of projects and cartoonists, right? So what I'm hoping to do, though, the way that I do want to make it, I do want to make it sustainable at some point. And really, this first couple, I plan to literally probably just lose money for a couple of years, right, on this project. What I hope to do is that in time, as people see that we're doing this, I hope to, one, turn it into a nonprofit so that we can actually accept like direct donations that are tax deductible, right? And I also hope that people will go and find, support on my other projects, right? Because essentially, again, my other projects are going to, all the costs of publishing things like, like the Anthology zine, all the costs of that are to fund, the printing, and then to fund the grant. So then hopefully if you buy, that's part of why, like, if you go to my website and look for this issue, it's a little pricey. It's $8. And the reason I purposely set it high, because one, it'll cover the print costs, and two, every other dollar goes to the grant, right? And then I hope also that, to be honest, I want to help the cartoonists. So I sell these at cost to the creators, and then the creators can sell them on their web. They can undercut me, and in fact, I want them to. I want them to sell this for $5 on their website, right, and be able to help support them. And but if you come to me, you're going to pay a little bit more, but you'll know where your money's going, hopefully, right? And you'll see the results of where it's going. And in the end, to be honest, what I hope to do is also just increase the grant. I mean, it's 500 this year. I'm hoping to do 1,000 next year. No promises on that. I haven't quite figured out if that's viable, but my end goal is to make it somehow sustainable through selling other products, or selling, I deal in comics. I deal in a ton of comics. So, I mean, most of the money from that goes to fund, goes to support these projects as well. And so just, I hope that it's eventually sustainable, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, like I think, like I said, I love what you're doing. I loved the 2 issues that you sent me, these anthologies. Like, cool seeing people like Eli. I know from the shop that I work at. That's how I met him, because like he shops there, right? So that's how that friendship started, and then the kayfabe group and like all this shit. Like, it's cool to see a bunch of names I know and never talked to before, and to see that, like you said, that the money that comes from these projects, it's not going in somebody's pocket. Actually, and not to say that that's a bad thing, right? Like, when like, I'm supporting cartoonists because like that's how they make their money. Like, some people, like, they're trying to make this a viable source of income while also doing stuff they love. But to know that this is also going towards a grant, that this is also going to help other cartoonists that don't have the money to get their stuff started, that's in and of itself very inspiring. And I don't know how you have all this fucking time.
Well, I mean, let's just say I'm lucky enough to have a very well-paying day job, and it also affords me just a lot of freedom to kind of work on a lot of other projects. So, and essentially what I do is I use bonuses from my day job to fund these projects, right? So I get in, I get bonuses, and then I use some of that for, the family and other stuff, but then I use some of that to just, I'm like, to me, it's a hobby, right? I mean, I could be spending this money just buying more comics, right? And that's essentially what I've done, is I'm buying less Marvel and DC and those kind of comics. And I'm using a lot of that money to fund this kind of stuff instead, to me, it's a hobby. I understand, like, sometimes I'm going to lose some money, right? I mean, but in the long term, I'm hoping that I can eventually turn this stuff into some viable, sustainable business model. Maybe, I mean, if not, maybe we do it for a few years and we just, don't find much value in it in the long run, and end up closing shop on a few things. But it's, again, like I said, I wake up in the morning and I have a project idea, and it eats at me until I just try it. Right. And so then I just start thinking, I mean, to be honest, like, before we got on the call, I was literally sitting here typing up a new kind of project idea that I have. And just because I was like, I've been thinking about it for like 3 days, and I can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm the same way, dude. It's completely the same way. I get it. I mean, like, I was driving home, like, I'm a huge hip hop head. And I was in the car. I was like, I've heard this song like thousands of times. It's one of like my favorite songs, the Atmosphere song. And I'm listening to it, and I got this idea, and it fucking wouldn't leave my head. And then I got in the house. I was like making dinner, and it still wouldn't leave my head. Then the next day, I recorded it as the podcast, and I had to share it with my friend. I'm like, dude, we have to do this. I don't know how we're gonna do it, but we have to make this together.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
it has to get done. And I told him the title, and he just like went like this. He went like, title. He's like, that title alone is dope. Like, we have to do something. And like but I've never made anything in print. But like, I'm listening to you. I'm listening to like other guys in the group, and I'm like, why can't I just do it?
Right.
I mean, like, I just need to do it.
And to be, I mean, that's the other part of the thing. Whether it's some of Eli's projects, whether it's Image Grand Design, or whether it's the Ringside Anthologies, right, that he does. What I love about what we're doing between him and Ben and myself and the other guys in this group that are kind of helping build these projects is, what I love is we're not just looking for the top talent in the group, right? We're literally going, anyone in the group that wants to participate, come and participate. And we literally, like with 1963, we have at least one person who's writing a story that's never written a comic before. They're just a big fan, and they wanted to try. And I said, then come on and let's do it. Let's give you a story and let's try it. You know, we have artists. I know for a fact IGD has artists that have never been published before. I know that 63 is going to have artists that have never been published before. You know, and Weapon X has artists that have never been published before. Right. So that's the exciting part to me, because we're literally trying to find ways to go. Like, we're not just trying to help bring comics in the world, we're trying to inspire the people in the group to be like, you can do this too if you want, right? And if you want to try writing comics, here's some projects that we're trying to put together that you have that opportunity. And or you want to try drawing, you know, like I said, Eli's like Ringside Anthologies projects once a month. I love that, because he just like gets the guys together, gives them a theme, and they all like draw pages, right? And you know, there's a number of people. It's like, I've never drawn a comic before, but I'm gonna try. It's just not a big ask to just go on for a couple hours and hang out with the guys on a Zoom call and draw comics together, you know, and just kind of learn. And everyone's so supportive. I mean, you talked about, you know, people like Tony Farrow before. I mean, Tony's awesome. He's
fucking dope.
He's really great, and his comics are freaking amazing.
Oh, they're dope as fuck.
Yeah, if you don't have any of Tony's comics, like,
I do. I need to get the new issue. I don't have the new issue of 21st Century.
This is the new issue right here.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, issue 3. He gave me a spot for the ad for the grant right there too in the back. So
dope. Nice. It's awesome, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, between him, I mean, Rick, right? Rick Lopez.
I need to pick that up. I haven't picked that up yet.
This is sick, dude. This is great. I mean, here's more Tony, you know, Tony Farrow stuff.
Got that one.
You know. Yeah, I mean, I found so many interesting people, so many, like I said, like you said earlier, I spend more on the books from all these indie creators than I do at my comic shop anymore. You know, I just got like Infinite Worlds #7, you know, the sci-fi magazine.
Oh, what's that, dude?
It's like it's a sci-fi art magazine, and they're really nicely made. This is the only issue I have so far, but I have issues 1, 2, and 3 on order right now that are coming in the mail. And it's like, it's mostly art, right? Like kind of, you know, sci-fi comic art. And then there's like, in this issue, there's a few comic pages as well.
Yeah.
But it's mostly art and interviews. And so and it's just beautifully put together, cool sci-fi. I mean, I love stuff like that, because it's like, you just flip through it and you're like, I don't know what I'm looking at. You know, it's like looking at like Mobius drawings, where you're like, I don't really know what he drew here, but it's cool. Like, I don't know what this floating thing with tentacles is, but it's cool. Like,
yeah.
You know, so that kind of stuff is like, it just, I don't know. I love that. And I love being able to like support more of that in the world. Right.
Yeah. Same, dude. I mean, it's like a scene that I didn't really pay attention to. I get, you know, because like, we don't have a lot of shops, I would say, at least in my area, that have a lot of local creatives in their I went to a shop in Portland that had a massive section dedicated to all local publishers.
Yep.
I'm like, this is fucking crazy. I mean, I was broke from that trip because of my daughter. So I ended up I just wanted to check out a shop. Anytime I go somewhere, I always go to a comic book store. And she's like, do you really need to go to another fucking store? I'm like, yes, it's a
Yes.
area. I need to see what, like, she's like, but you're not even buying anything. I'm like, that's not the point, dude. I gotta see how, how the other side lives, kind of, like that's what my goal is. But this group, and like, I can't sing his praises enough, dude. Like, Eli having me help him edit the Wizard zine was a fucking pleasure and a joy. Like, he's like, I'll pay you. I'm like, I don't want money. Just give me a copy of the zine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I'm cool. Like, I'm not trying, I don't need money. And I got an article that's going to be in the second issue, and I'm going to submit an interview as well. But discovering the group and discovering all this new talent, like, it's more, to me, it's more exciting. Like I said, I'm more excited about Image Grand Design than I am for probably any other book. I'm more excited about the 1963 and, Giant Size than I am for a lot of other stuff, because it's like this buildup, and there's this excitement that surrounds it that you don't get from, like, just fucking shit you can find.
No, man. And that's it. Is that these guys, everyone in this group, man, they love comics. And that's whether you love Silver Age Marvel or you love 90s shit Image comics, whether you're a Jack Kirby or a Rob Liefeld or even like a Charles Burns or it doesn't matter. And everyone knows it in that group. And that's what's really great about it is that everyone's there for the love of comics, right? And and that's the thing that's interesting about comic fans that I found is, like, even when it's comics we don't read, like, I mean, to be honest, I just don't read much DC comics at all.
Okay.
But I sure love hearing other people talk about them, like, and I love seeing, like, people talk about what they love about Batman or Flash or whoever, right? I mean, and those characters in that world and the way the comics are put together to build it's amazing. And I can at least talk about, oh, well, I have read some comics, or I know the creators, right? Like, oh, Neil Adams working on Batman. I can talk about that, and we follow these creators, and even when it's not something you trust with most of the people in the group, that everything they're posting is out of love, right? Out of love for that subject matter. And even when it's not your thing, it doesn't matter, right? It's still good to see the conversation. And in fact, I'm a moderator in that group, right? And one of the things that I love is literally, I'll just, like, look at, it's one of the few places where it's safe to look at the comments. You know what I mean? Like, in most groups, like, the general rule is stay the fuck out of the comments, right? But in that group, I love reading the comments and just seeing which creators or which people in the groups, what their thoughts on this topic is. And then we even have some, we have a lot of, indie creators. We have some big time creators in the group as well. And seeing sometimes they chime in on things, and I'm like, this is amazing. Like, I don't know. No, it's just a blast. And it's a blast to find, new and creative talent, right? And I mean, you mentioned Wizard. I cannot wait to see that cover, that Matthew Allison cover, right? To Wizard #2.
I know, dude. I'm fucking so stoked that he's doing the cover. David Browers did a fucking amazing job with that first one. But the fact that you have Matthew Allison doing a cover, I mean, and Eli also, this dude probably doesn't ever sleep either. I mean, he's constantly got something much like yourself, and it's inspiring to me too. Like I have never written or draw. I can't draw for shit. But I definitely want to make sure that the next time you guys put the call out for a project, I'm gonna try my hand. I'm gonna try and story for sure.
Well, hey, I got submissions open for issue 4. If you want to try something, you want to try a 1-pager.
I'm down. I just gotta find an artist. But
yeah, man. But yeah, or I'm always gonna have stuff. But yeah, always keep on the lookout, man. I'm excited for Wizard 2. I did an article in Wizard 1. I don't think I'm gonna do anything for 2 this time. I'm gonna leave that to the professionals. But it was great to be. I remember when issue 1 came out, just going like, I can't believe I was part of this project with all these other amazing people. Were involved in this project. That alone was so weird and exciting to me. When I remember I saw Diane Schutz posted about Wizard 1 because she did a big interview. Diana posted on Facebook, and then Kelly Jones responded that he wanted a copy. And I just kept thinking, like, holy shit, like Kelly Jones wants a copy of something that I'm in. Like that
That's the
doesn't
truth.
even,
That's so
yeah, I
dope.
was like,
Yeah.
what? Like that doesn't
Yeah.
even compute to me, you know, like Kelly Jones is like insane. Like
Yeah, dude. No, it's crazy. It's like that's such a I mean such a cool idea when he told me what he was doing, and I'm like, dude, that's dope. But then I started seeing the pages, right? But I saw it on the laptop, so it was a little bit different. But once I held that book in my hand, it's fucking massive. It's bigger than any issue of Wizard, and it's on better paper stock.
Yeah.
And but just like holding it and reading it, like I've gone through that fucker so many times, so many times, dude. And it's just a hell of a project. I'm excited also to not only be able to see the second issue, but to be a part of it this time in more of like a creative capacity. Like it's just very cool. It's very,
Yep.
very cool. And
Yeah, man.
so before before I let you go, I do want to know a little bit more about anything else you got coming up that we can be on the lookout for.
So not much I mean, not much that we haven't talked about, right? Like I said, people can go to makemorecomics.com and look for the rules about the grant. Of course, the grant for this year is closed, and we're in the judging process right now. But that is where I will post that in the Facebook page. If you search Make More Comics Arts Grant on Facebook, that's where we will post the news on the next grant. So follow there. Also follow my page on Facebook, 100% Comics, or my Instagram, 100% Comics, and it's the number 100 and then the words percent comics.
Okay.
If you follow on Instagram, I post stuff for sale there, but I also post a lot of just like indie books I get in, and I post news and stuff there. And follow there for more news and information. And like, I mean, when I open up pre-orders to projects like Weapon X, that's where I'll post it. I'm hoping, my dream is that Weapon X pre-orders will open in late May or early June. It's it is a volunteer project, so there's some leeway in when we're going to get some of the final pages in, right?
Right.
So, and it's a little hard. I can't push a whole lot of editorial control when I'm not paying these people, right? It's
Yeah.
so that's what we're shooting for, and I think we're gonna get there, or sometime not long after. And once pre-orders open, be on the lookout there. I mean, no other real projects right now other than those. So just keep following, and I'm sure I'll have something soon. Oh, and then like I said, issue 4 of
That's what I was gonna ask. Yeah.
issue 4 of the anthology. So if you go to my Facebook page, again, number 100% Comics, the submission guidelines are there, and it has a link to all the guidelines. I tried to build the guidelines with with all the specifics that a creator would need to be able to submit. And if you submit a pages, and they are accepted for publication, I send money via PayPal over to you, right, and pay for that. Go ahead and look for those submission guidelines over on the Facebook page.
All right, man. Well, I mean, you pretty much already said my last thing was going to be you tell everybody where to find you, and so
Yep.
you gave us all that. I will drop all those links down below in the comments. Again, dude, thank you for chatting with me today. I had a lot of fun chatting with you, and I definitely want to be able to do another one with you when we can talk about some of the other projects that you're going to have coming up. Maybe when you pick the grant winner too, maybe we can talk about that too. That would be really cool, man.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Yeah, I'm always around. Just hit me up anytime.
All right, dude. Thanks, man, and talk to you soon.
All right, thanks, man.